All right, so with our intervals, we talked about major seconds, minor thirds, major thirds, perfect fourths, perfect fifths, major sixths, major sevenths, and perfect octaves there. Within that octave, so if I start on E, I know we did G for that. Let's start with an open string. So we'll start with open G, why don't we? All right, so if I played open G and the G on fret 12, that is a perfect octave, and it is 12 half steps counting inclusively. So 0 to 1 is one half step. 1 to 2 is another half step. So that's how we count. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And the reason I'm moving my fingers like that is so you can see the distance between them is always one fret. Those are 12 half steps. So that means a major seventh is 11 half steps to go from G to F sharp. And that is also from this G to that F sharp, or this G to this F sharp here. It's 11 half steps or 11 frets. So then from G to F natural is going to be 10 half steps or 10 frets. From G to E, which is a major sixth, is going to be 9 half steps. And then to E flat or D sharp is going to be 8 half steps. To D natural is going to be 7 half steps. To D flat is going to be 6 half steps. To C is 5 half steps. To B, 4 half steps. To B flat or A sharp is going to be 3 half steps. G to A is going to be 2 half steps, and G to A flat or G sharp is going to be 1 half step. So even though the intervals are sometimes, like for example, G sharp and A flat are the same in the same spot, those are called enharmonic equivalents. What that means is that they are the same note, but they have two different names. And the function of those things is a different thing. When I play an A flat note, it wants to resolve down to G. When I play a G sharp note, it wants to go up to A. So the function of a flat is to go down a half step, the function of a sharp up a half step. So intervals by half steps is a great way to learn them on the guitar. And if you look horizontally, it is much easier to understand the guitar in one string at a time than it is to understand all of the intervals that way. The other thing I wanted to bring up about intervals is that the guitar is tuned to perfect fourths, except one spot. So from E to A is a perfect fourth. From A to D is a perfect fourth. From D to G is a perfect fourth. From G to B is a major third, so that's the one exception. From B up to high E is a perfect fourth as well. So the guitar is tuned in fourths. So if you need to know what a fourth looks like on most sets of strings, it's just going to the very next string on the same fret. Okay, and then with the exception of this, which is a major third, and then that's a perfect fourth also. So if I wanted to do a perfect fourth here, it would have to be that right there, from C up to F there. But from F to B flat, or from E to A, there you go. All right, so that covers a lot of information on intervals. We will do other lessons on intervals because it is probably the #1 way to help our ear develop. Part of the interval process is to learn like bass, hear what the bass is doing in songs, you know. So if I was going, let's say Back in Black, for example. So that may not be what the exact bass line is, but it's an E, a D, and an A. And if you can hear that, then I can assume that my chords are some sort of an E chord, some sort of a D chord, and some sort of an A chord. Not always, but oftentimes the bass notes are either the root or the fifth of the chords, at least on the strong beats. So there's some interval information. All of that will help you to learn songs more quickly, more easily. Also to figure out melodies, to figure out tunes of your own. If you're making up music, you can think like, oh, I hear this sound in my head, and then your fingers can find it because you know what those intervals or the space between those notes are. If you hear a new song on the radio that you've never heard before, you can almost imagine how to do that. Also, Mozart used to write often without an instrument. He didn't have his piano with him. He was just writing because he knew what the intervals sounded like. He knew what it sounded like to go from an F chord to a C chord. And a lot of the Nashville session players that are out there these days, when they have to write charts and listening to songs, Tom Bukovac talked about this on a video I watched recently, and he said, I almost never have my guitar with me when I write down a chart. I just listen to the song and write down. And then he doesn't have to know what key it's in even until it's time to play it. Then he has to figure out where the 1 chord is. And then once he knows what the 1 chord is, if it's a 1, 6, 4, 5, you know, he knows how to play that in a million ways. So, you know, it really makes the learning process easier. I know it's a long video, there's a lot of information, but the goal is to simplify how we learn, and to make it so that it's fun to learn a new thing or to create a new thing. So, all right, there you are. Have a great day. Thanks.